So let's stand on our feet and start giving
Nothing can stop me. Nothing can stop me.
Nothing can stop me. Oh man, I appreciate that so much. Give it up for our MC, Terrence Lethbridge. I do have a quick announcement, and Brenda just shared with me. If you're not using your phone, could you please turn it off? Because the Wi-Fi is getting taxed and they're having some issues streaming it. So if you're not using your phone, can you turn it off and put it in airplane mode, at least until the event is over? Whew, I am so excited to be here. But let me ask you a question. By a show of hands, how many people think that there's only one person up on this stage? Okay, some of y'all glasses aren't turned on. By a show of hands, how many people think there's only one person on this stage? Okay, so we got more people. Okay, so we understand the question. All right. Now, if I asked you who was on the stage, Frank, what would you say? Saucony, right?
And his tribe.
Oh, and speaking of which, and whereas I think she stepped out for a second, I shared this with, in fact, Sabrina when I first met her, and I've shared it with several of you. And for those who haven't known, in fact, my name is Saucony Prince of SauconyPrince.com, where we make motivation personal by introducing you to yourself. I tell people the easiest way to remember my name is to write it on a check. That's the easiest way to remember my name.
Nobody's gonna remember his name.
Thank you, Jeff. Well, now, I asked you who was on the stage, and a lot of you said Saucony. Well, I'm going to introduce you to somebody else. His name is Coney. Not Saucony. Coney. Coney's the name that my mother used to call me when she didn't want to say my full name. She would just say Coney. My question to you is this. What was your childhood nickname? I mean, somebody yell out their childhood nickname. What'd you say? Chavez, okay. Brian, okay.
Vern.
Who? Vern, okay. Okay, so your childhood nickname, I want to represent that's your inner child. Throughout this conference, we've heard a lot of people talk about trauma. They talked about things that happened to them when they were younger. Now, the worst thing we can do with our inner child is we can ignore it. Act like it doesn't exist, act like it's not there, act like what happened to us didn't happen to us, and we try to suppress it. Some other people, instead of ignoring it, they pacify it. They try to feed it certain things just to keep it at bay. But I want us to get to a point to where we've made peace with our inner child. I had a chance last year to share at a Focus Women's Conference. And it was incredibly powerful from the standpoint that I had them to think about the little girl within them and how that little girl looked at them today. Would they be proud? I even talked to them about protecting that little girl, ministering to that little girl, not forgetting that little girl, even applauding the strength of that little girl that didn't give up, that didn't quit, that didn't allow the circumstance she went through to keep her from going on. But it's not just for little girls, little boys. A lot of us have issues that we have yet to truly face. We've yet to spend time really examining what went into making us who we are. And because of that, we find ourselves going through these cycles of not really getting where we want to be. Because every now and then we will give the keys to our little child, to our inner child. I tell people all the time, never let your emotions drive. They're not covered on your insurance. Never let your emotions drive. They are not covered on your insurance. Now, the most infamous Example of that happened last year at the Oscars. A lot of you already know where I'm going with this. Will Smith allowed his inner child, he gave him the keys. He walked up on stage and slapped Chris Rock. Now, after that happened, little Will climbed in the back seat, got in his booster seat, and fastened the belt. And Big Will had to deal with the fallout. Lost millions of dollars because he allowed his inner child to drive. When you've yet to really deal with the trauma that went into making you who you are, there's always a trigger. There's always something that happens to you that puts you back as a little child. Randy was talking about that young lady. She went from a 31-year-old to a 7-year-old. I can remember there were times in my life when I have found myself acting like I was Conan. Whether I was afraid, whether I was scared, whether I didn't want to wait for something. If we keep ignoring our little child, our inner child, we set ourselves up for failure. We set ourselves up for failure. See, me introducing you to yourself is me taking the time to walk you through a process to where you see yourself as a whole. A lot of us say, well, I'm an adult now. Well, it's never too late to have a happy childhood. It's never too late to have a happy childhood. Now, there's a difference between childish and childlike. I'm gonna say that again. There's a difference between childish and childlike. When we're childish, we are looking at things that are going to satisfy us, make us happy. When we're childlike, we're actually looking outside of ourselves. Going back to that example about Will Smith, what he did was childish. But when you have faith, when you have childlike faith, you are looking for something that's beyond your own capabilities. So my point is this: whether it's childish or childlike, we still have that inner child. Now, I'm actually working, and I am so excited because everybody here, when they told us to turn our phones off. Well, okay, just write this down. If you get a chance, CicconePrince.com. That's CICONEPRINCE.com/heal. HEAL. And you will get to this page right here. This is my latest book. It's called Heal. Help, Elevate, and Learn. But see, the thing about it is we have to do that for ourselves first. Because if we never heal, we can't help somebody else. I had a chance to speak at an event last year in Phoenix. And the closing quote I left them with, I said, are you healed enough? Are you healed enough to help celebrate somebody else and help them glow? Now, some people think, well, I still have trauma. I still have issues. And that's fine. We all do. The question is, are you healed enough to help somebody else? Are you healed enough to see somebody else hurt? And to me, superheroes are the people that have their own issues, but they can still help somebody else. They can put their stuff on pause for a minute and be able to focus on someone else. That reminds me, I was flipping through the channels several years ago, and when Stan Lee was still alive, they had this, So You Want to Be a Superhero. It was a show. I never really watched it. I was just flipping through the channels, but this time I caught it, and they had an objective. I mean, it was like a reality show. They were eliminating people. People came in with their own superhero names and costumes, all this kind of fun stuff. And when I turned on the television, they had this challenge where they had to run through like a public park and do something by a certain time, and if they didn't do it, they were eliminated. What the contestants didn't know was that they strategically placed a young girl actor within earshot of them as they ran to accomplish this mission. And she was crying out for help. She was saying, help, help. And a lot of them just ran past her because I got to go and I got to do this because if I don't, I'm going to lose. Two of them, they stopped. They were in the middle of this contest. They know they were being filmed. They had the opportunity to win all this money. But they looked and they saw this little girl over there crying, asking for help, and they stopped. They forgot what they were going and they went to help her. At the end, Stan Lee told him and said, that's what a hero does. A hero puts their own issues to the side to help somebody else. But see, if you're not healed, it's all about you. It's all about you. It's all about what hurt you, what traumatized you. But if you get to the point to where you've actually dealt with your own issues, and I'm not saying be perfect, I'm not saying they're ever going to go away, I'm not saying you're not going to face them again. But if you ever get to the point to where you really deal with them to the place where you can put them on pause to help somebody else, do you really know that you give them an example? Yeah, I know you're hurting. I know you're going through some stuff. I know your heart is broken, but you're helping me. You just lost your job and you're here cooking for me. That's what a hero does. Everybody in this room has an opportunity to do just that. But the question is this: have you looked at yourself? Have you looked at your own hurt? Have you looked at what has gone into making you who you are? My whole journey of personal development started from a bad relationship. I was going to school in Atlanta, early 90s, dating this young lady. Everything was going great, wonderful, and fine until it fell apart. And I remember getting up on Saturday morning just running, jogging, running and crying and talking to God and trying to figure out why is this happening to me. But you know what I started to do? Instead of blaming her, instead of looking at her, instead of saying what she did, I started saying, Sakoni, why is it that in 80% of the relationships you've been in, it was the woman that ended it? Why is that? Why do you hold on for dear life? Why is it that you won't let go? What is it about you that just puts you in that place to where you can't give up? What is it? See, we'll ask questions of everybody else, but rarely do we ask questions of ourselves. Rarely do we ask questions of who we are. And when I started doing that, I started to see some things about me that I didn't like. I started to see some things about me that were hurting. I started to see areas that needed to be healed. I started to realize that I could be a better person if I dealt with this. So now what about you? What hurt you? Who hurt you?
Absolutely.
Sometimes it's a situation. My wife oftentimes, she watches people on YouTube. She followed several individuals. And there was this one young lady, she was doing a budgeting channel. And she had a whole lot of videos and stuff up there. And my wife, she shared one with me where this young lady had a problem with saving money. And she realized why. Because when she was younger, she was part of a happy family. Something happened and there was a car accident. Her younger brother died. And for whatever reason, the family split and she went into foster care. Now, thankfully, she got into a good home. They actually taught her how to save. They took care of her. And eventually her mother and father got back together and were able to get her back. Well, now as a young adult that's 22 years old, now when she tries to save, she has the hardest time saving money. And she realized why. Because saving money reminded her of her family being broken up. Saving money reminded her of her brother dying. She had to deal with that trauma so that she could move past it. Now, I am not a psychologist. I'm not a psychiatrist. That is not my field. But I do know enough about this. I've talked to enough people. I've been enough places. I've shared the stage with some of the most incredible folks on the planet. And a lot of them are here tonight. That's right. Give yourself a hand. But even with that being said, all of us got some work to do. We got some work to do. Our children are looking at us. The example that we're setting for them. Talk about that generational, that curse, that bondage. What are we showing them? So many people have heard this story, and I'll never get tired of telling it. I was doing my event back in 2017. My second event, I was doing it at a hotel that was less than a mile from my house. I forgot something. I was getting ready to head home. My youngest son, he was 10 at the time. He said, "Dad, can I ride with you?" "Come on, son, sure." And I'm thinking in my mind all of the things that I need to get because I only have one chance to go back home and come back. So while I'm thinking, while I'm going, without having a conversation, without being prompted, without saying anything, my son looks over to me and he says, "Dad, I'm proud of you."
Wow.
Now I'm driving. I'm doing 35 miles an hour. But I stopped. Not driving on the inside. Because I realized he was watching me. See, if you realize somebody's watching you, you will actually do the work to show them it's possible. You can heal. You can get past that trauma. You can get to a better place. But if you don't realize that, you'll stay where you are. You'll stay stuck. You'll stay in that position that doesn't serve you. You want to show somebody how to be a hero? Even with all the stuff you've gone through, all the stuff you've dealt with. Can you just put that to the side for a minute and help somebody else? Can you pour into somebody else's life? Can you show somebody who's watching you, this is how you do it. This is how you live. I mentioned earlier I had a stuttering problem as a child. I had to put that to the side because I realized what I was given. I realized the value of what, like I said before, with great power comes great responsibility. But that's just a paraphrase of to whom much is given, much is required. The problem is we don't take an inventory of what God has given us. And because we don't do that, that means we don't see the responsibility that comes with it. You can change somebody's life. You can make somebody's life better. You can give them an example of what it means not to give up. You can do that. I'm doing it for you. But I want you to do it for somebody else. Because there are people that they'll tune me out. They won't even listen to me. When I walk in the room, they will shut down. But when you show up, when you open your mouth, when you share your story, they'll listen. Somebody is waiting for what you have. And see, for you to show somebody else that they can become the best you got to do it first yourself. Put in the work yourself. I said that HEAL stands for help, elevate, and learn. You do that with yourself. You go through the process. But then you turn around and you do it with somebody else. You share it with them. You pour into them. You encourage them. You do that because you realize, just like you're realizing now, you have so much to offer. You have so much to give. You have so much that you can do, even in the short time that we have on this earth. I want to make it a point that when I stand before God, I can say, it is finished. I did everything you gave me to do. I came back empty. I encouraged, I motivated, I taught. But what are you going to say? What are you doing with your life? Who are you impacting? Who are you helping? The rent we pay for living on earth is service. Serve somebody today. Help them to see that they can do better, that they can do more, that they can make an impact. But you have to do that by example. You can talk all you want to, okay? Anybody can do that. But what are you doing? Are you healing? I'm going to say this, and I know my time is almost up. If you go to this page and scroll all the way down, at the bottom, I put some bonus content. It was from an event, actually DJ Mac J's event last year in Kansas City, where I talked about telling your limits goodbye. It's about an 18-minute video. It's worth your time. It's worth your time. And Loda, she can tell you, there was a young man there. He was blind. He was taking notes. He was taking notes at the event. But I want to encourage you. I want to encourage you. Your life can make the difference to somebody else. Don't ever forget that. Don't ever forget that. And with that being said, I'm going to turn it back over. Is that a crown? What are you wearing? What the? Lord have mercy. Okay, yeah, I'm turning it back over to Brenda and Janice.